Hello everybody and welcome to the gutter. We're here for another episode of Iron Maiden-A-Thon. Last time was Dance of Death. This time we're going for A Matter of Life and Death, the 2006 album from Iron Maiden. This one right here, as you can see, it's my nice out-of-print limited edition version that I got from Amoeba Music. And there's the artwork, and you can see it without all the stickers on it. We'll go through that in a little bit after we get through all of the background information and stuff on this. But this album is fantastic. It comes from the band in 2006, hot off the heels of the Eddie Rips Up the World tour, where they played only songs from 1980 to 1983 from their first 4 albums. That was a great tour. Wish I could have seen it. But we'll start off with when it was recorded. It was recorded from March to May of 2006. Bruce Dickinson actually said in an interview that they had about 2 months extra time that they didn't use on it because they just got through the album so quickly. And that was in Sarm West in London, and it was released August 25th, 2006. There were some other weird dates around there. It was released in the US later and whatever, but nowadays we have just one worldwide release, but this is the official release date. The background, obviously, they were off of the Dance of Death World Tour and the Eddie Rips Up the World Tour. The album itself, when they recorded it, is not mastered. It is live in the studio, so it is the closest thing that you can get to a live recording. All the parts were played live in the studio, and it gives that off. It's a very live-sounding album. It's very raw-sounding and very punchy like that. It is their 4th studio album to not have a name that shares a track on the album. So you have Peace of Mind, you have the X Factor, you have Virtual 11, and then you have A Matter of Life and Death. Some of the tracks that were thought to be in the running for title tracks were The Pilgrim and The Legacy, but obviously those weren't the name of the album. The genesis of the name of A Matter of Life and Death, depending on who you ask in the band, it might be from someone in the band, their manager, or just a random studio person. But either way, that's the name that they stuck with. The album cover was done by Tim Bradstreet, who had done Hellblazer and Punisher, and he was obviously a very big Iron Maiden fan. It shows off Eddie with a battalion of skeletons on a tank. The tank is from the Korean War, but the gun is, as you can see, is patched on from a different tank there. The A Matter of Life and Death tour was the supporting tour. It didn't have a cool name like the X Factor tour or whatever else. On the 2006 leg of the tour, the very beginning of the tour, they played the album in its entirety. They played all 10 tracks, 1 to 10, and then played 5 or so Iron Maiden classics. And so this wasn't a very popular decision at the time. People thought that it was dumb that they would play the whole thing. I will get to that later and prove why those people are idiots. But this album is fantastic. I wish I could have seen that tour. There are some bootlegs out there on YouTube of like the soundboards and stuff like that that sound pretty good. So that was it's pretty awesome to hear. You can go look those up after this video. The only tour to not include Number of the Beast up to that point, they actually did later on in the A Matter of Life and Death tour. On the second leg, they celebrated the 25th anniversary of Number of the Beast, and then they played more songs from it. They promised that they would play 5, but they only played 4, and then they played 5 tracks off this album on that part of the tour. That's it for the background, so we're going to go through the CD here. This is the special edition that's out of print that I seem to have gotten from Amoeba Music, but there's the front. There's the back. The back album was actually supposed to have an image of Eddie getting shot down or shot up or dying from a gunshot wound, but they changed it to the insignia that's on the tank instead of that. So we'll go through and give you a nice look at this CD. It comes with the CD, and I think it comes with a DVD as well. Let me get that open if I can get it out here. And it comes with a bonus DVD with the making of The Matter of Life and Death, the Reincarnation of Benjamin Breeg video, and a studio performance of Different World, the opening track. So this is the special edition that you would have gotten if you ordered it, on Iron Maiden's website or whatever in 2006. We'll go through the booklet now. Here it is. There's some of the liner notes and a nice picture of Bruce Dickinson there in the studio, looking badass. There's Steve Harris playing an acoustic bass. Cool looking. Dave Murray. Yannick, whatever you want to pronounce his name like. My favorite Iron Maiden guitarist, by the way. There's Adrian with a cool double-headed guitar. There's Nico, everybody's favorite. This is actually pretty interesting for the booklet here. It actually has tour dates listed. So yeah, you don't see that too often. And then there's a nice little section from Kevin Shirley on 6606 about the making of the album. And then that continues over here. That was the booklet for the album, and now we will get to everyone's favorite, the track-by-track review of A Matter of Life and Death. We're starting off with track 1 here with Different World. This is by Adrian Smith and Steve Harris, coming in at 4 minutes and 17 seconds long. It is the shortest song on the album. It's a little different from your average opening Iron Maiden track from this era, especially like The Wicker Man and Wildest Dreams. It's pretty fast and speedy like that, but the vocal styling of Bruce Dickinson on this album is very different, or not on this album, on this track. It was the second single released, but it was the first track shown off from the album. They streamed it on their website before it was released. Obviously, Reincarnation of Benjamin Breeg was the first single. This was the second one. It was released after the album came out. This song is a tribute to Thin Lizzy, especially with the low-sounding melodies that Bruce Dickinson sings on the track. And it's all about being in a situation where you don't really want to be in, that you don't want to be there, and you're thinking of a better one, and you're thinking of a better place. But you just got to remember there will always be another day. There will always be a different world for you tomorrow, or a different world for you to go to. This one is probably the most hopeful and cheery track on the album. It doesn't really follow that sort of theme that the rest of the songs will have about war and religion. So it kind of sticks out like that, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad track. It just means that it doesn't really fit with the rest of the themes of the album. It doesn't really sound like other Iron Maiden tracks with the vocals. I think they did that on purpose to help with the Thin Lizzy comparisons here. It's a special track on this album, though, because it doesn't fit in with all the other themes. And it has 2 music videos. It has one of them just performing it in the studio, and then another one that has some funny CGI graphics of Bruce Dickinson running around with a vial of purple liquid trying to get it away and giving it to Eddie and throwing it at him or something like that, and then Eddie destroys the city. And then it cuts back even further, and it shows that Eddie is holding the world in his hand. It's the single album artwork that you can see right here. It's the end of the video. But this track is really good. I really like this track. It's definitely one that'll bring you up. Now to get to something that'll bring you down the rest of the album. I'm just kidding there, but it's a very dark, toned album here. So number 2 on the album is These Colors Don't Run by Steve Harris, Adrian Smith, and Bruce Dickinson, coming in at 6 minutes and 52 seconds. Bruce Dickinson famously dedicated this song to Sharon Osbourne after the whole Ozfest debacle of them fucking with Iron Maiden while they were playing on Ozfest, and he dedicated it to her with These Fucking Colors Don't Run, or These Colors Don't Fucking Run, either sort of variate on that phrase that you want. This is one of the most powerful tracks on the album. It's one of the most powerful tracks that they've written in general. There's a lot of power to this album. I think it's part of the reason why the not mastering works so well, because of that. It's about the hypocrisy of war and how we send our soldiers off to war. We send our boys and girls in uniform out to fight. And before they go out and fight, they are heralded as heroes. They're defending our country. They're defending our people. And then when they come back, it's not really the case, especially like conflicts like Vietnam. Hopefully not with a conflict like the war in Afghanistan that the U.S. just exited. It follows the tragic loneliness that's given by fighting in a foreign land. You go off from your home to some place you've never been to, you've never seen, you don't know anyone, and someone's out there trying to kill you. So it really follows that theme. And other than fighting off tyranny and oppression, depending on what war you're talking about, they're not really given any thanks for their sacrifice. And so make sure you go out there and tell a veteran, thank you for your service, and I don't know, buy him dinner or something like that. Who knows? But it is very topical, like I said, with the U.S. leaving Afghanistan. This is a very topical song for that situation. It has a very orchestral sound. The rest of this album really just sounds like if Iron Maiden ever plays with an orchestra, they have to play this whole album, because a lot of the riffs and a lot of the musical structure sounds like it should be with an orchestra here. It's one of the best tracks on the record. I really like These Colors Don't Run. Give it a shot if you haven't heard it before. Number 3, we have Brighter Than a Thousand Suns by Adrian Smith, Steve Harris, and Bruce Dickinson, coming in at 8 minutes and 44 seconds long. It is one of the heaviest riffs that this band has ever written. It is all about the atom bomb and the creation of the atom bomb and how horrible it is for society to have access to a weapon like that. Basically, the atom bomb is like playing God. Whoever has control of the nuclear weapons, atomic bombs, whatever the hell you want to call them, can be God. You can see it with situations like with North Korea, or if anyone actually that was bad got their hands on a nuclear weapon, it would be a bad situation because one of them going off can alter the course of human history. It continues the themes of war and religion, because you also use religion to start wars, and you use wars to fight other people's religions, like crusades and stuff like that. It's really an exceptional track that speaks ill of using the nuclear bomb. Let's not ever do that again. That really, we should be working towards disarmament of all nuclear weapons for the world. But some people won't agree with that. Let's move on. Finally, it doesn't give off a bright and cheery reflection of humanity and mankind here. We're our own executioners, and we're just waiting to blow ourselves up. It really shows off the evolution of Bruce Dickinson's vocal talents. Obviously, you have his early career where he's the air raid siren, he can sing as high as he wants. This one, especially on this track, it shows off that evolution of his voice and the deepening as you get older, obviously. Bruce Dickinson's voice has only gotten better. That's it for Brighter Than a Thousand Suns. Next up, we have what could have been a title track in The Pilgrim by Yannick Herz and Steve Harris, coming in at 5 minutes and 7 seconds. It's the second shortest song on the album. I love Yannick Herz, Steve Harris songs. They're always awesome. Like The Book of Souls, coming up on the Book of Souls album. One of my favorites. The last song of this album, another one that's a Yannick Steve Harris track. This one, pretty good. It sounds a lot like you took classic Iron Maiden, something from Power Slave, and you said, hey, here's new Iron Maiden, and we're going to put them together. Because there's a lot of disconnect, actually, between those two camps, between those two sounds. And this one feels like a nice happy medium between the two of them. So it tells the story of the people on the Mayflower voyage going to the New World, and it doesn't really speak well of the Church of England at the time, because they were selling favors to get yourselves into heaven. So if you wanted to be a dickhead, you could just buy your way into heaven, which I'm sure is really one of the core tenets of Christianity, isn't it? To buy your way into heaven. Some of the heaviest drums on the album, Nico really stretches his muscles here on just pounding the shit out of the drums and making it sound like a tank is rolling through your headphones or the wall next to you if you're blasting it on your speakers. It perfectly fits in between these two tracks. Obviously, Brighter Than a Thousand Suns, really long. The next song, quite long, so it's a nice break, and it's sort of a more happy-sounding song, even though the subject matter is not so cheery. Fifth track that we have here is The Longest Day by Adrian Smith, Steve Harris, and Bruce Dickinson, coming in at 7 minutes and 48 seconds long. It disrupts that belief that war is some glorious, idealized thing. You know, we go off to war and we kick some ass and we come back home and everybody's happy. War is not like that. It echoes D-Day, Normandy invasion, Operation Overlord, all that, etc., etc. It's set from the first-person perspective of somebody at D-Day that's literally marching onto the beach, getting shot at. It doesn't hold back from that description. You get a very, very vivid description of the beach, the blood in the water, the bodies everywhere, the death, the violence that's happening. And it takes the heaviness and just cranks it up. And it has an incredibly catchy chorus. It's a very soaring vocal performance from Bruce Dickinson on the chorus here. I really enjoy it. And it doesn't mess around with any flowery language. A lot of the time you're going to have songs about D-Day where it's all about Americans kicking ass. And This really gives you that side of it that you would see if you were there on the beach getting shot at. So I really enjoy this track. I think it's pretty underrated on the album. I think the whole album is underrated, to be fair. But this track in particular is pretty good. Number 6, we have Out of the Shadows by Bruce Dickinson and Steve Harris, coming in at 5 minutes and 36 seconds long. It is a more upbeat track. Besides the opening track, it's probably the most upbeat of them all. It compares your birth to being a king for a day, so anybody who's born can, still have that great time and have that celebration of life, and it follows the life and death of a person throughout their life. And you really have to endure pain and suffering in your life to reach the good parts. It's like a nice ebb and flow. You got to go to the bottoms, and then you go to the tops, and then you go to the bottoms. Life isn't just one straight line across. If it is, that would be pretty boring. It doesn't sound like a lot of other Iron Maiden tracks out here, though. That's pretty weird to me. It's the closest thing you'll get to a ballad on this album. I know that Iron Maiden has had Wasted Love as their first ballad, and you could say that there are other ballad-ish songs, but Wasted Love is the first one. This one sounds pretty much like a ballad, but it doesn't go into that territory. It still grabs it and pulls it in to be a little bit heavier. It's probably my least favorite song on the album. I don't find myself listening to it a whole lot. Obviously, I listen to this album a lot because I really like it. But if I'm scrolling through on my phone or on a playlist or whatever, this one usually doesn't make the cut. Doesn't mean it's a bad song, just for me personally, not my favorite. And now we get to the 7th track on the album. The Reincarnation of Benjamin Breeg by Dave Murray and Steve Harris, coming in at 7 minutes and 21 seconds long. This was the lead single for the album, and let's go through the viral marketing campaign, because Iron Maiden just did one for their newest album, Senjutsu, with writing on the wall by including all the little hints and the Belshazzar's Feast kind of things that they were putting out. This was the first time that they did this. They made a website that you can't go to now. It's been pulled down. But if you go to, I think, the Wayback Machine or something like that, you can go look. There's pictures and images of it. So the website was created by Benjamin Breeg's cousin, who was trying to find him after finding pictures of him in some old photos. He noticed, hey, that's a family member I've never seen. Where is this person? Benjamin Breeg was born on September 3rd, 1939, which is coincidentally the day that the Allies were formed in World War II after the Nazi invasion of Poland. Benjamin lost his parents, sadly, in an apartment fire or a house fire, and went through various foster families and orphanages. And at the age of 10, he started having nightmares. So he started painting what he saw in his nightmares and became quite good at it through the years. And later in his life, he went to the International Institute of Paranormal Investigation and published books on paranormal activities, and disappeared on June 18th, 1978. The cousin arranged a meeting with somebody who said, hey, I've actually seen that person. I know where he is. They never got to their meeting. The meeting was set for August 14th, 2006, which is the day that the single released. And finally, right here is one of Benjamin's paintings of one of his nightmares, and you can tell it looks a little bit like our friend, Eddie. So that was the giveaway, that this was not just some weird random horror movie or something like that, that this was something that had to do with Iron Maiden, and this was the lead single off of the album. This was basically the culmination of a story, and that story is pretty awesome. The painting is pretty awesome, obviously. It might be the deepest. There's 2 tracks on this album that have very deep lyrical meanings that you have to, analyze, that I did. And it's really hard to unpack the song about what it actually is about. Is Benjamin Breeg a character that, Steve Harris had met in his life? Is it Eddie? I don't know. But all I know is that it is a really heavy song. The music video goes through the entire career of Iron Maiden in sort of a retrospective. It's a really cool music video of them playing in the studio as well. Dave Murray absolutely destroys and just shreds the goddamn solo on the song. It's awesome. And this is one of my favorite Iron Maiden tracks ever. This is one of the first Iron Maiden tracks that I sort of latched onto after I became a fan. I heard this track and I went, wow. First of all, I hurt my neck when I was younger, listening to Iron Maiden. I've hurt my neck twice listening to Iron Maiden besides going to concerts and banging. First time I heard Fear of the Dark, I just cranked my neck and was real sore the next day. Reincarnation of Benjamin Breeg, hearing that opening guitar riff after the slow intro, I hurt my neck headbanging. So, you know, everybody out there, get some neck insurance for when you're out there headbanging. But this track is really great. I really like it. It's sort of not lost in time, but they have brought it back since then. But it would be nice to hear this track live once again. Our 8th track is For the Greater Good of God by Steve Harris, coming in at 9 minutes and 23 seconds. This is the main event of this album. This is the crown jewel of A Matter of Life and Death. It condemns war and religion as a couple throughout history. You can't have one without the other. They cross together. You've got the Crusades. You've got a bunch of historical events and atrocities that happened because of religion, and trying to spread religion throughout the world to get that sweet, sweet money, that sweet gold. And religion brings on war, but it's a testament to Iron Maiden that they are not afraid to condemn religion. This isn't a condemnation of all religion. If you have religion and you use it to find purpose in your life and you go to church and you have a whole community, that's great. That's not what we're talking about. That's not what Iron Maiden's talking about here. They're condemning the people at the top that say, you know, oh, these people over here, they have to be Christian. Let's go invade their country and, you know, turn them into Christians by any means necessary. Those are the people that are bad. Those are the people that are getting skewered in this song and on this album. It shows that if there is a God, they would be one of love, not of hate and violence. It really is a good message out there, even if you don't believe in God or you have a different religion that you believe in. You know, it's better off to just spread love and warmth into the world than to just suck it out and, you know, spread hatred and violence, because those never lead to anywhere good. Obviously, treating your fellow man with respect and all of that, man or woman, is better. It might be the best vocal performance that Bruce Dickinson has given in this reunion era. This album is really a showcase for his vocal abilities, especially now. And the chorus of this track is a particular highlight. This track, I didn't fully appreciate up until I saw them perform it live on the Legacy of the Beast World Tour in 2019. This was the only track that they played off of A Matter of Life and Death on that tour, and it live is an experience. It's just one of the best live experiences you can get from Iron Maiden, so make sure when they do the rescheduled dates, you go check them out in Europe or in wherever else they're playing. But this track live is absolutely fantastic. It has that orchestral epic feeling to it, and you can't really get any better than that on this album. I love it. I love this track. I listen to this track a lot. This track is great. For the Greater Good of God, a real good one off of A Matter of Life and Death. Up next, we have the penultimate track in Lord of Light, and I was talking about before how there are a lot of tracks on this album that are sort of hard to unpack. This is one of them. What is the Lord of Light? Who is the Lord of Light? Lucifer is known as the Lord of Light. It is one of his nicknames or one of his names. It could be talking about him as seeing humanity as salvageable, because obviously Lucifer was the fallen angel and kicked out of heaven, if you believe in the Bible and all of that good stuff. It has two different viewpoints. It has one of Lucifer and one of an unnamed onlooker looking at, you know, humanity as a whole. And you could see it as Lucifer not wanting humanity to become vengeful and angry like he is. But he's not portrayed as a hero here. He is portrayed more as a tragic figure that we can all learn a little bit of a lesson from. And diving deep into this song's lyrics really gave me a bigger appreciation for it. I really like this song, actually. Once you really dive deep and unpack the lyrics, you can really get a more wholesome and complete interpretation of the track, other than just, you know, this is pretty good. It's about some dude named the Lord of Light, but pretty good track, pretty great track. But we get to the last track on the album, number 10, The Legacy by Yannick Herz and Steve Harris, coming in at 9 minutes and 20 seconds. I lied. This is the main event. This is the best track on the album. This is the most powerful track on the album. It's one of the most powerful tracks that Iron Maiden has ever written, lyrically, musically, and everything. It is a foretelling song that tells about how mankind can destroy itself from within in the name of God, or whatever else you want to do it, in the name of money, oil, whatever the fuck we want to destroy ourselves over. this is what it's about. You can get a little bit of World War I vibes from it because it's talking about mustard gas and sending people off to war, but you could really do that with anything. The opening sort of poem or performance by Bruce Dickinson could be seen as any type of war throughout history. It's really a song I think everybody needs to hear, especially in the political environment that we live in, especially in the U.S. It provides a bleak outlook on government, religion, and humanity in general. We're really out to kill ourselves here. Leaders use their power to abuse and gain more influence and more power, but they use the common man as their army and as their fighting force for their agenda. Sounds a little bit similar to someone that the United States just had in office using the common people that they actually don't like to get across their agenda and try to overturn the government. Lies, deceit, promises of peace, you get it all here, and all of that tells us, they tell us all what we want to hear, but they're not really telling us the truth. It speaks about the abuses of power throughout history and how eventually people find out about the truth, and why they're going off to war to die for dumb reasons. You can use that for maybe, I don't know, the Iraq War or Vietnam War, which were both caused by somewhat shady circumstances. It ties up the record nicely. It fits into that theme, the overarching theme of the album. The ending of the song gives the strongest rebuke of tyrannical and lying leaders out there. Just, if you haven't looked at the lyrics for the song, listen to the song while reading the lyrics. It's a much better and more enjoyable experience. Obviously, the song is great if you're not reading the lyrics, but the section at the end, Bruce's vocals, are wonderful. It's a very weird sounding section to an Iron Maiden song. The song really has multiple parts to it. It's a very progressive track like that where there's tempo changes and stuff like that. It's a fantastic one. And, you know, at the end of the day, these assholes that send us off to war, they're not going off to war. Their kids aren't going off to war. It's people like us. It's the common person who are going off to war to fight their battles. And they're not going to stop until we're all dead. They're going to keep pushing their agendas until we're dead. So that's the end of A Matter of Life and Death. It does not end on a cheery, bright, happy note. It ends on a bleak, dark, and sort of depressing note. This album is one of the finest albums that Iron Maiden has ever made. It's one of the finest metal albums of all time. It has a cohesive theme that goes throughout the album that I really think benefits from just sitting down and listening to all 10 tracks in a row. Because when you take the songs and you pull them out one by one, they are great. They are good Iron Maiden songs, but it's really, 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 really when you get the whole album in a row, 1 to 10, that you listen to it, that you can really get the themes across for everything. It's not a concept album like the Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is, but if you can tell and you go back, every single track in this album has a Steve Harris writing credit. I think that this is the closest you're going to get to another concept album for the band. It might not tell a full story, but it does tell a story of war and religion and humanity as a whole, killing each other. You really have to listen to it all the way through. I'm really proud and happy that the band did that on the tour where they played the whole album all the way through so that people could get that experience. There was a lot of backlash, but they stuck to their guns, thankfully. So if you're one of the people out there that was mad about that, right here, fuck you. Finally, not mastering the album was a stroke of genius. It really works for the overall tone of the album. It makes it sound a lot grittier and a lot more powerful. Gives it that orchestral quality, and obviously it sounds like a live recording. This is one of my favorite Iron Maiden albums. I would probably put it in the top 5 all time. It is that good. This album is fantastic. I really like going back and listening to it over and over again, all the way through, and it led into my first Iron Maiden album that I bought and that I listened to and that I had the experience of enjoying as it released in 2010's The Final Frontier. But in between that time, we had Iron Maiden going out on tour to support this album in 2006, and then we had the 2008 Somewhere Back in Time World Tour, which is my genesis of loving Iron Maiden. That's the first Iron Maiden concert I went to. But we'll get to that in the next video with 2010's The Final Frontier. So that's it from me and Eddie to you. We'll see you again real soon for 2010's The Final Frontier. But for now, we'll have to say goodbye.